Hey friend, I'm so glad that you're here for today's coffee chat with Angie. If you are joining live or if you're catching the replay, I'd love to know that you're here. It just warms my heart knowing who's watching, so please say hi in the comments. Last week, we talked a little bit about creating systems that are made for you. And it's totally fine to borrow someone else's system. And I actually encourage that you do that. But what most people do is they tend to take a system that was working really great for someone else and just plop it into their life the exact same way. And that does not serve you. You are not them. And so the most important thing is to tweak it to fit your life. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. This week, I want to dive into something that's just as important. And honestly, it's something that sneaks up on a lot of us. Let's talk about what happens when your system stops working. My name is Angie Fishke. I'm a personal strategy coach. I help driven working moms create rock solid systems at home so dinner isn't a last minute scramble, kids' logistics are not chaos, and self-care is not an afterthought. Instead of guilt and exhaustion, you can finally feel free, present, energized, and in control of the life you are building while also having time for yourself. All right, you've had it all figured out. Things were flowing, they were running smoothly, your routine was clicking, and then it just doesn't anymore. And you're like, what the heck? Life happened, right? Maybe your schedule shifted and you have more hours during the week or less hours during the week. Maybe your kids hit a new phase and now they're into extracurricular activities and you need to create space to bring them. Or maybe they're driving and you have more space to work with. Or maybe you just changed. Your energy, your preferences, something just shifted. It doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that your system expired. Here's the thing. Every system you create has a season, and part of living with intention is paying attention to when that season is over and being willing to make small tweaks. So let me give you some examples from my own life. One was meal planning. This was a huge stress in my life, getting home, not knowing what was for dinner. And so I finally figured out a system that worked for our family, and that was meal planning. I did it once a week. I could finally come home and say, hey, this is what we're having for dinner when the boys asked. I knew I had all of the ingredients I needed in my kitchen, and I knew I had the time to make it because I intentionally, when I created the meal for that day, knew how much time I would have. So it was great. What was not to love about it, right? The actually doing it. I hated sitting down and meal planning. And you know what? It seemed like when I was doing it once a week, I would get just finished meal planning and then the time was there to do it again. And quite honestly, it was starting to become really stressful. Did I love the results? 100%. But I knew that if I kept going the way I was going, it was not going to last. And I also knew that it was starting to lead to burnout. So I had to switch something. So what I did is I decided, since the thing I hated the most was the planning, I would plan for a longer period of time. So I did 2 weeks and I was like, okay, this is better. And I think I did that probably about 2 or 3 times. And then I planned for an entire month. And that is still what I do today, several years later, is do a meal plan for a month. Do I love doing it? Nope, still don't love it. But there's enough of a gap in between each time of doing it that it doesn't feel like I just got done planning and here I am doing the thing again. And I can break it up into smaller pieces if I desire. And I tell myself every single time, I'm only doing this 12 times a year. Like, now that I am done with this one, I have one less time. So it has worked for me. And will it still work that same way in 2 years for me? I don't know. Seasonal change. So we'll see. But at this point in time, that is what worked for me. The other thing is self-care. I was in a season of loving taking a longer bath. 45 to 60 minutes, I would light a candle, read a book. It was absolute heaven. And then at some point in time, it wasn't. I realized I was starting to almost do it like a check mark. It was something that I needed to check off on my list of stuff to do. And I didn't love it. When I was taking the bath, it felt forced. It felt like it wasn't relaxing. And that's the whole point of self-care, right? Is to relax, rejuvenate yourself, redo your mind, feel re-energized. And it was not doing any of that for me anymore. So I needed to adjust. I needed to figure out what I wanted to do for self-care in that season. Was it a 15-minute walk outside? Was it still reading a book, but instead of doing that in the bathtub, I just snuggled up on the couch with a candle? Whatever it was, I knew that it needed to shift. Now, that didn't mean that I gave up on self-care. I still knew that was important. I just changed the way that it looked for me in that season. So here are your takeaways for today. Systems are meant to support you, not become another stressor. So pay attention to how they feel. If it's not flowing, it is okay to tweak it. And remember, you haven't failed. You've evolved. And your system needs to as well. And that actually is a really, really good thing. So if you're in the season where something feels off, give yourself permission to adjust. You're allowed to outgrow the system that once fit perfectly in the past. It's okay. So I would love to hear, have you gone through a season where a system that was working really, really, really great just wasn't, and you had to adjust it? I would love to know what you did. And maybe as you're listening to this, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm in that season now. That's exactly what it feels like for whatever system you have and why it's feeling so forced. If you need support in just figuring out, brainstorming, troubleshooting what that tweak would look like for that system to fit in your life as it's evolved to now, shoot me a message. I would love to help. So thanks for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time on Coffee Chat with Angie.